Iron Man has become a staple in modern day merchandise due to his surge in popularity, and the same is true for LEGOMarvel, being one of the few characters to get their own dedicated sets. However, over the past few years, I've noticed what I would consider a decline in LEGO Iron Man for three main reasons. 1. The new helmet. 2. The variety. And finally, 3. The range within that variety. The original LEGO Iron Man helmet first came out in the first LEGOMarvel Superheroes wave in 2012, appearing in two sets based off of the Avengers films. This first helmet was used for nearly a decade, making its final installment in 76190 Iron Man Monger Mayhem. However, as beloved as this helmet was, it wasn't perfect. Its biggest weakness was flexibility. While LEGO was able to vary the aesthetic of the helmet through printing, the mold itself was still very MCU-coded. And that became a problem when trying to adapt armours with flatter and more integrated faceplates. Thus, in 2017, a new helmet piece was introduced. It was slimmer and without a removable faceplate, just one piece. This version of the helmet has been heavily criticized as many people dislike how flat it makes the faceplate. However, if we take a look at Iron Man's armours, historically, most of the faceplates have been flatter, as they were more integrated into the helmet compared to the MCU counterpart. Personally, I'm a really big fan of this piece, as it allowed LEGO to make some pretty special and unique suits from other mediums that weren't films. In addition, this helmet was smaller and more proportional than the previous helmet, making it even more accurate. In an ideal world, the original helmet mold would live alongside this newer, sleeker helmet on shelves, one for movies and one for comics or video games. Unfortunately, the original helmet was replaced by the newest helmet that attempts to merge the two previous helmets. In theory, this is the perfect helmet, as it also has the recognizable function from the original helmet while allowing for the variety of the newer one. Unfortunately, this helmet sucks, for a few reasons. First, the size. The problem isn't just the helmet is bigger, it's that it's taller without being wider. This imbalance throws off the proportions as the faceplate stretches upward but loses coverage on the side, making it look elongated and slightly squashed at the same time. This leads to my second and third critique. As I mentioned, many of Iron Man's helmets have been flatter and more integrated into the helmet than the MCU version, and this newer version would have served better as a replacement for that second Iron Man helmet, as it could also adapt to classic comic book suits, albeit they'd be a bit stretched out, but some helmets wouldn't suffer too badly from this. That is, if LEGO actually made comic suits for Iron Man. So far, LEGO has only adapted one suit with this new helmet, that being the Model 64, which, to me at least, looks horribly upscaled. The only other non-MCU suit to use this helmet is one LEGO design, which doesn't look the worst, but it's because it's been specifically catered for this helmet. My point is we've only gotten two non-MCU Iron Man suits with the helmet that was designed for the inclusion of non-MCU armours. We have gotten 12 different MCU-based Iron Man minifigures with this helmet, not including War Machines. This just completely baffles me, because they have a piece specifically catered to the MCU helmets, but they discontinue it with an inferior version and then continue making the same MCU sets. The contrast is made even worse when you're trying to display the armors together, because these two helmets are meant to represent the same thing. However, the difference is night and day. Technically, you can have more detail on this newer helmet, but that doesn't matter if there is no extra detail needed. Basically, LEGO hasn't fully utilized this new helmet by continuing to focus on MCU-based Iron Man figures instead of branching out to comic armors that would benefit more from this new flatter helmet, much like what happened with the second helmet. Finally, the range. In 4 years, we have only had 9 different MCU Iron Man suits. Only one of these suits is actually new, that being the Mark 25. Every other suit is just an update or redesign of an old suit. Now, there's nothing wrong with LEGO going back and updating old figures. Some of them desperately need it. But they haven't actually given us anything new in years from the movies. Not to mention, when they redesign a suit, they overuse it. It's great that LEGO wants to make certain suits more accessible, but there's a difference between making something accessible and not wanting to make something new. For example, in Iron Man's laboratory, Hall of Armour, the Mark 6 is reused, even though it's barely seen in the film. This wouldn't be a problem, but the Mark 6 was already in use for Iron Man and War Machine vs. Hammer Drones, which was a cheap way of getting the Mark 6, as well as the Marvel logo. Including it here was just unnecessary and repetitive, as there were several other suits that could have been used in the background. Not even new suits, just ones we hadn't seen in sets for a while, like the Mark 3 or 7. However, even worse was the inclusion of the Mark 43. Not only had this figure already been in another cheaper set, but this suit was not present in the film at all, as it was made after Iron Man 3. The latest armor was the Mark 42, which desperately needs a remake too. Iron Man 3 is famous for its variety of unique Iron Man suits. And rather than getting one of those, we simply are met with reused remakes.
Now, many of you dear viewers may think I'm cherry picking here, but I'm not.
Some other examples are the Iron Man 4 bust, which uses the Mark 6 legs, even though it was a very different pair of legs we will never see, as well as the Avengers Age of Ultron Quinjet, which could have updated the Mark 45. Again, this wouldn't be a problem if LEGO gave us a better range of Iron Man armors, but they don't. They don't have a great excuse either, as there are about 20 MCU suits they could make, and decades worth of comic armors that could be made too. However, like in Ouroboros, LEGO would rather keep recycling the same suits over and over and over again instead of actually giving us something new. They would rather make an exclusive Iron Man for a 4+ set than adapt any of the classic Iron Man armors from the comics.
Personally, I believe this is a byproduct of the death of Iron Man in the MCU, as previously, LEGO was forced to make new suits for the character almost annually, but now they don't have any of that pressure, meaning they can keep feeding the fans the same thing with no issue.
Ultimately, LEGO has made some meaningful improvements to Iron Man minifigures with the printing, but that doesn't mean there aren't some serious issues with LEGO's current approach, as there is barely anything new for LEGOMarvel collectors to look forward to when it comes to Iron Man minifigures. They do not have a valid reason either, as there are a plethora of Iron Man suits to adapt from comics, films, and video games. However, because there is no external pressure for the expansion of Iron Man's gallery, LEGOMarvel is stuck, recycling the same figures constantly and barely introducing anything new. I love LEGO and Iron Man, and this is not meant to be a video to spread hate, but rather critique and identify the flaws in LEGO's current strategy when handling LEGOMarvel, and specifically LEGO Iron Man.